A terrific panel here, and I just wanted to get into the discussion. But before doing that, I would like to introduce our very distinguished panelists here. Shailesh, first and foremost, a very good friend and the head of South Asia for Sanofi. Dr. Mohan, thank you for being here. Padma Shri, very eminent diabetologist and the promoter for Dr. Mohan. Dr. Saida Hamid, needs no introduction. Thank you very much for being here, ma'am. Member of the Planning Commission. There is Mr. Anshu Prakash, thank you for being here. Joint Secretary, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. And Professor Srinath Reddy, President of Public Health Foundation of India. So the plan for the next hour is for each of the panelists to give their comments. There are some questions that we gave them in advance. And then we'll spend 45 minutes roughly with the panelists. And then we will come back to the audience and have you ask some questions. So please keep your questions ready, and we'll come back to you in about 45 minutes. Shailesh, if I can start with you, just to give us your thoughts and comments on the questions we had given and your perspectives on NCD.
Sure, Karan. A very good morning to everyone, and a great privilege to be here. As someone who has spent 25 years in pharmaceutical industry, I've been thinking, why am I here today? What really brings me here? And to some extent, it's a calling. It's a calling of a very responsible situation in which the industry has to play its role much more significantly, other than just providing drugs and insulins and whatever else we do in diabetes, or for that matter, anything else we do for our non-communicable disease. Now, if you look at over the years, what really it would take for an industry like ours to play a very significant role. And when I say this, I'm reminded of a French writer who actually said once that if you want to build a ship, don't drum up the men to just go to the forest and collect the woods, saw it, nail the planks, but actually teach them the desire of the sea. I think that's where the real issue for us is, that do we really have the desire to see the bigger picture, desire to see the sea and make a real difference? And to that extent, I think over the years, the pharmaceutical industry has played its role. If you see what was before, in several years ago, when what we take it for granted, drugs that really help us to live a healthy life, were non-existent. But over the years, the research and the work done by many of the scientists in universities and in pharmaceutical industry has brought about a significant difference in some of the chronic NCDs that we are currently facing. Starting in cancer treatment, whether it is in leukemia, or whether you look at even a transplant, where we were finding a rejection factor was so much, and today modern medicine is helping acceptance of these transplants much, much more better than what it used to be in the past. So the question for all of us is, and we heard Dr. Mohan talking about the importance of multi-stakeholder participation here. If we consider NCDs, and we heard the data very, very, very clearly and vividly, that it's almost like a tsunami that's going to be impacting the whole world. And make no mistake, India is amongst the top 20% of the world population suffering from diabetes alone. Leave aside the other NCDs. In this context, my submission is that the days are gone when only a drug treatment is what's really going to make a difference. We are very clear about it. What can we bring on the table? The very important aspect is that here is an industry which is widely spread out. Its job is to educate. Its job is to really communicate and talk with the stakeholders. That's what we are good at. Can we use this available resources along with multi-stakeholder group to really spread the information, knowledge that is required to be spread across the length and breadth of a country of our size? I think there are opportunities that we can really, really work on. The question today is, how do we bring about that coalition? We've been doing some kind of activities here. Now let me give you one example, and that's where I will stop. For example, we realized that one of the biggest intervention that we could bring about would be in the school children. because this is an impressionable age. If you look at the children between class 2 and class 10, there are very good possibilities of creating a next generation of our young people who are going to be promulgating this whole aspect of prevention and really making a difference. Now, we really decided to work with an NGO called PVR Nest. We all know that PVR is one of the largest theater groups who actually have the screening of films. And what we really did was to really work with this PVR Nest NGO. We selected 4 cities simply as a starting point: Delhi, Hyderabad, Chennai, and Kolkata. And each city, we took 50 schools, 25 municipal schools and 25 private schools. And we tried to really inculcate in these school children the value of healthcare through puppet shows and some very innovative ways by which children would like to learn. We used some of the doctors to come across and partner in this whole process. And eventually, the slightly older children were requested to really work on creating health films which they would make it through the help of some of the Bollywood directors who would willingly come forward and help them to make those films on how to prevent, for example, tobacco consumption, or for that matter, leading a healthy life, the eating habits, and so on and so forth. Totally, there are about 200,000 children who are involved in this activity, only in 4 states. And you can imagine, in 4 cities, to be honest, 200,000 children participating in this whole activity and eventually coming forward with simple films which will be shown on all the PVR theaters all over the country. Just to give you an example, the power of collaboration that industry and the various stakeholders can bring about. We're also working with Apollo Group. We're working with a number of other hospital groups to really see how we can come together as a pharmaceutical industry and this group of various stakeholders to make a real difference. So that's what I believe are the power of collaboration here.
Thank you very much, Shailesh. Shailesh, 2 follow-up questions if I can. One is, you talked a lot about treatment. Can you give us your thoughts? How do you shift the paradigm to wellness? Right. And what does it mean for product suppliers, the medtech, the pharma companies? And is this good business as well?
Yeah, I mean, Karan, here again, we have recognized that managing NCDs, answer does not lie only in providing medication. And we really need to have a very strong ability to do a 360-degree holistic approach to the management of, say, for example, diabetes. And here I'll give you one other example. We have one of the longest running patient support program that we run in this country. We call it as Saath Saath. The Saath is togetherness, keeping the A1C level below 7. So Saath Saath, this is the program. And what we've been able to achieve here is that with the help of healthcare providers all over the country, we work hand in hand with about 75 to 80 trained counselors who actually help these doctors to manage their patients through all the advice that is required to be given apart from medication, which means change in the lifestyle, the healthcare advice, some of the physiotherapies, and of course, education on physical activities and so on and so forth. So in other words, yes, the newer and newer medicines and the innovation that we can bring about, which is very vital for our part of the world, where it has to be cost effective, easy to administer, and easy to comply with. But we also need to have a much larger approach to this whole problem, which includes really advising the patient and their families in terms of how do you change your entire lifestyle, which is not so difficult. It's just the question of bringing that whole approach to this management of this disease, which is what I believe is the future of companies like ours and my colleagues in the pharma industry.
Shailesh, one more follow-up question. We talked a lot in the morning in both the presentations about the importance of innovation. Can you talk a little bit about, do you believe India can export innovation here in NCDs? Any thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I'm a deep believer in frugal innovation that India can bring about and show to the world. Today we are talking about smartphones. Technology has gone up so much, but we also know the cost of these, many of these technologies. I have seen that Indians are in a position to bring about major innovations that could really help bring very cost-effective, easy-to-use technologies to the rest of the world. The other day I met one of the graduates, an Indian graduate from the Harvard Medical School, and he came up with a fabulous new system, which incidentally Dr. Mohan might be able to speak because he is trying out at his clinic, where actually with a fraction of a cost, you are in a position to monitor all the vital parameters of the body, make sure that these are transmitted to the hospital, and instantly, through the help of telemedicine, you are in a position to provide instant support even to the remote areas. We know that Apollo Hospital has done pioneering work in this direction. We ourselves, in a very small manner, we recognize that I was at one point in time importing a reusable insulin pen from a UK-based company. It was costing us close to about 18 euros per one reusable pen. We managed to create an Indian entrepreneur who actually created this pen far better in its features, superb quality, excellent to use by the patient, easy for administration, everything that we were looking for. And guess what? The cost of that particular reusable pen came down from 18 euros to less than 3 euros, and much, much better. Today I have requirement from China, from Brazil, and a number of other countries for exporting this innovation from India to the other parts of the world. So in short, I think there is obviously a tremendous possibility for Indian entrepreneurs to really look at some of the technologies that are needed in the healthcare delivery in a much, much more holistic manner, and then provide it to the rest of the world.
Shailesh, thank you very much. Dr. Mohan, if we can turn to you, please. Just give us your thoughts on the importance of NCDs, some of the big global learnings that are applicable for us in India.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizers, particularly Dr. Reddy and the Apollo Group, for calling me here for this meeting, and also to congratulate you for this initiative of the Healthcare Alliance. I think this is a very good first step, because as several speakers have said in the morning, as well as Shailesh just mentioned, I don't think there is a simple fix for NCDs in this country. It's not that a doctor can write a prescription and solve NCDs. It's not that a health minister can write out a policy and that will solve the NCDs. We have to have multiple stakeholders. Let me just take diabetes as a model, because diabetes, I think, is a nice model of NCDs. And if diabetes is going up, then you can take it as a surrogate that all NCDs are going up in this country. So when we say that we have 65 million now, according to the latest 2013 report published by the IDF, 65 million people with diabetes. Now that's 3 times Australia, and it's probably the population of UK or France and so on. Now that's not the problem by itself. Earlier, diabetes was considered a rich man's disease. So they said, okay, somebody is very rich and it's a rich man's disease, so if he gets it, it's actually a status symbol. If you get your Mercedes-Benz, you're not made it in society, you have to have a little bit of diabetes to actually be considered successful in society. That has changed, because that has moved from the upper classes to the middle class, and now to the lower income group. 10 years ago, when I did a survey, the prevalence of diabetes in the slums in Chennai was half that of the middle income group. When we repeated the survey 10 years ago in the same colonies, it's now equalized. 5 to 10 years later, the poor people will have more diabetes and obesity, as we are seeing in the UK, in the US, and other developed countries. Now, this brings in a great challenge, because the rich people can look after themselves, whereas the poor people simply cannot afford treatment. It's been estimated that 25 to 30% of one's income will be spent on the treatment of diabetes. So you can imagine if 1/3 of your salary is gone just to treat diabetes, what you have left. And the poorer you are, that percentage is going to increase. The second challenge is that it used to be an urban phenomenon. Today, it's going to the rural areas. And in the developed countries, it's already more in the rural areas. In India, not yet quite, but 78% of our population lives in rural areas. Where are the specialists? Where are the doctors? Where are the clinics? So as we saw in the African example, which Dr. Srinath Reddy showed, it's 78% of the patients are treated by nurses. Do we have the nurses who can treat them in rural areas? So this calls for huge capacity building, and I'll come back to the telemedicine story, which Shailesh mentioned in a minute. And the third problem was, it is considered a disease of old age. Okay, you're 70, 80 years old, and you have lots of diseases. You have a little cataract, a vision problem, hearing problem, you have little diabetes. Then it started coming to the middle age. Then it started coming to the youth. Today it's affecting children. We have teenagers who have not type 1 diabetes. I'm not talking about a small number of children with, it's not small, but by percentage is only 1 to 2%. But we're talking about type 2 diabetes now coming in adolescents and children. Now these children have to live the next 50, 60 years, and I'm not sure that they'll all get the Jocelyn Medal, which was talked about. So what happens to them if they are in rural areas, they have no access to care? I'd be surprised if they live 10 to 20 years with diabetes. So we have a huge problem, and so the problem of accessibility and how do we go there. So this brings us to at what level do we manage diabetes. So we have primordial prevention, where you can prevent the risk factors, and this is pretty much common for all NCDs. If you prevent obesity, you change your lifestyle, add exercise and so on, you prevent not only diabetes, you can prevent heart disease, you can prevent hypertension, obesity, and even some other cancers. Then you have primary prevention, where you have already people who have come to the stage of pre-diabetes, and I think Dr. Brooks mentioned that. So how do you prevent these people from going to diabetes? And we have evidence today that it's possible, but how do you translate this into the community? And then you have secondary prevention. People already have developed diabetes, and now how do you prevent them from getting complications? And all the time we have people who come to the clinic already having developed complication. They already have eye complication, kidney complication. That's when they're detected. Now, we can't leave them all aside and say, oh, we are going to focus only on primary prevention. So we have to have action at the primordial prevention, primary prevention, secondary prevention, tertiary prevention. And obviously approaches are different. On one stage, it's more policy, awareness, and so on. When you come to secondary and tertiary prevention, diabetes diverges a little bit out from the other NCDs. You have to have something to prevent renal disease or treat renal disease or have lasers to treat eye disease and so on. So that needs a completely different set of people trained. So you have capacity building both at the primary level, at the secondary level, and as a tertiary level. I'd like to give you just one example of how this worked. We got a piece of land donated by a zamindar in a village called Chunampet. So he just invited me and said, I'm going to give you 9 acres of land. And what can you do in Chunampet? So I said, sir, I'll do 2 things. One, I'll ensure that I don't take 1 rupee out of Chunampet, but we will give to Chunampet. That's the first thing I'll do. The second thing is, I'll ensure that Chunampet model for rural diabetes care is developed, which the world can follow. So he liked that, and he gave us the land. With that, we went to the World Diabetes Foundation, who gave us a big van, fully loaded, fully equipped, with all the equipments that you would see in any tertiary center of ours that we would run. Now, this van went from village to village. We adopted 42 villages. The government, in a private-public partnership, the government of Tamil Nadu actually said, take those villages, but just give us reports on what you did. So we actually went to these 42 villages, population about 50,000 people, about 28,000 adults, screened them all for diabetes, hypertension. Where primary prevention needed to be given, we reached out with education models. Where diabetes was detected, we started low-cost generic drugs were used to get their diabetes under control. And I'm happy to say that in all these 42 villages, the A1C of the entire population came down from 9.5 to 8%. Now that's a huge, and that's the kind of HbA1cs we have in our diabetic clinic. So in these populations, we're able to do that. And finally, if they needed tertiary care, and we found that only 2% of patients in Chunampet with diabetes needed referral to a tertiary center in Chennai for either a laser treatment or for a complicated foot problem, which we were able to do by providing them transport and so on. We also built a rural diabetes center for follow-up of these patients. So over the last 7 years, almost the population of this 50,000, now we've gone to the next district, the Tiruvallur district, where we are going to, in Sri Parambattur area, where we're going to adopt another 50 villages. So I would say that if NGOs come forward and develop this model, and the whole thing is done through telemedicine, no doctors in the van at all. So the van goes there, the driver in fact doubles up as an eye technician, and the local people there, the unemployed youth there were taken and given jobs, and they were trained to do simple things like doing simple foot examination or blood sugar or blood pressure. And then the images were transmitted to our main center, where the ophthalmologist said, we don't have enough ophthalmologists, send them to all the villages. And they then read the pictures and say who needs treatment and who needs referral. So this kind of a model can provide care at the primordial prevention level, primary prevention level, secondary prevention, and tertiary prevention at a fairly low cost. And I think if this kind of models are developed in this country using the technology that you mentioned, it can be mHealth, or it can be telemedicine and so on, this is going to be the problem. Simply asking doctors to go to rural areas or asking all the specialists, we don't even have enough specialists to do that. So that is where I think innovation such as this and the Healthcare Alliance is going to play a big role, and I'm happy to see so many masters of industry here who will be able to do, doctors are very bad at this. And therefore, we need partnership with you. So if we can join hands together, I'm sure we have Dr. Balakrishnan here who's doing a great job at the KG Hospital. So we have several models, several islands of excellence, but we have to now scale this up into a national model, which the government can then take up, and the Planning Commission, the government is here. I think this is the real answer to the prevention of NCDs.
Thank you very much. That's a great example of innovation, of multi-stakeholder action that you talk about. One of the leading medtech companies, as CEO, asked me this question, and I'll ask it to you. Is India really the diabetes capital? And the reason is we have a paucity of patients. So we've seen big numbers, but the actual treated patients are pretty small. So how would you create this market?
Okay, so answer the question. Until about 2 or 3 years ago, India was the diabetes capital of the world. And then came this big study from China, which was done in 6 places in China, which now has a number of 95 million people. So China is clearly ahead, if that study is true. There have been a lot of criticisms about the study because the rural part of that study was not really rural. So from China itself, there's a lot of criticism. But let's not get into that. It really doesn't matter. We're very happy to give the gold medal to China in this particular place. Of the 3 gold medals that Srinath mentioned, I think one of them can easily be given to China, and we'll take silver or bronze. We're happy with that. But the point is not that. When you have 2 countries, India and China, with 90 and 65, 150 million people, half of the world's diabetes is in these 2 countries. The Western Pacific big numbers that you saw there was because of China. And of course, if you ask me, will India be the diabetes capital? Yes, it will. Why? Because our population is going to beat China in a few years. They are a much older population. We are a much younger population. We are going to grow much older. Our demography is going to change. And obesity rates are already much higher in China than India, and it's only beginning to go up here. So in the next 10 to 15 years, I have no doubt that we will be the diabetes capital, which I don't want it to be. I hope we can again remain in 2nd or 3rd place.
No, but Dr. Mohan, what I was asking is there's huge drop-offs from the prevalence to the treated.
Yeah, sure.
So
that's the rule of halves. So just as in hypertension, you have the rule of halves, that half of them don't know they have the disease. Of those who know, we have done this in cures and in the INDIAB big national study that we have done, half of the people are detected after we go in and do the screening. So half of them don't know that they have the disease because they're asymptomatic. Of those who know, only half take treatment. And of those who take treatment, only half are under control. So it turns out, if you do the maths correctly, that 12% of people with diabetes in any community actually have their diabetes under control. So 88% are not under control. So we have work to do at all these levels. A, to detect these people by screening. B, to improve to see that those who come for treatment continue to take the treatment. And C, those who are taking the treatment reach the target levels of the A1C 7% or the blood pressure targets or the lipid targets. So at every place you have work to do, and the work is a little different at each of these. But putting a model together which addresses all of these, I think will solve the problem.
Great, thank you very much. Dr. Hamid, if I can turn to you and get you to share your thoughts on the overall topic in terms of the agenda, and then we'll get into some questions.
Yeah, thanks very much, Karan. Friends, I also asked myself the question, why am I here today? And it came not at all as a surprise that I'm here because of the commitment I feel to this Healthcare Alliance. And all the partners that have been so, in a way, so strategically collected by Dr. Reddy, who has, I think, provided a great platform and has some great knowledge partners. So I think all of that combination is something which has drawn me here. I want to say that just as you collected this platform, and I have to add how beautifully it was contextualized by the 2 speakers who addressed the 2 speakers, Dr. Brooks and Dr. Srinath Reddy. But before that, the 2 women who always provide the best way of contextualizing anything. So I really want to congratulate both of you. Planning Commission and the Government of India. I think what we have been able to do and what we like to do, and maybe not, we still have a long way to go, is in the context of the 12th five-year plan, which you all know runs from the year 2012 to the year 2017. We are an outgoing planning commission. We go out with the government, and what we leave behind is the roadmap which has been defined in the 12th five-year plan. And I have to say that the basic foundation of this 12th five-year plan, which is towards a faster, more inclusive and sustainable growth, was provided by the high-level expert group, which was chaired by Dr. Srinath Reddy. And I feel in that enormous work that Dr. Reddy and his team did, because of that and based on that, the 12th plan and the NCDs, which form an extremely important part of the plan, those were conceived and placed before the country, and it was signed on by the whole country. So whatever is contained in the health chapter on the 12th plan on NCDs has the commitment and the endorsement of all the states across the country, and I want you all to remember that, to look at that, and continuously to refer that, because what you have set out, Dr. Reddy and all your colleagues, is on a very tough road, definitely doable because you have such able knowledge partners and also the commitment that you all have. But I think that it requires that you have a basic grounding which is there in the plan. What we have tried to do, and I think other colleagues have talked about it, and I do at this time want to say that the Sanofi Nest, what is it?
The
PVR Nest. I was a part of that PVR Nest. And I think it's wonderful to get Bollywood involved, and that immediately takes the message across. And just as Sanofi has done that, what I have found in this country is the most wonderful examples of people across the country who have been working at NCDs, non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations, in the remotest of areas across the country. Let me give you one example. In Chhattisgarh, in Bilaspur, in Ganyari, which is absolutely a remotest area, tribal area, a bunch of doctors have left lucrative jobs and are trying to bring dignified health to the tribal people. And when I went there, it was really wilderness. When I went there, I realized that they told me that these are the people who are suffering from lifestyle diseases. But the consciousness and the awareness is something that we are trying to give them in a dignified manner. And I also want to here make a plea, because I'm sure I'll forget it, is that in these lifestyle diseases, what is extremely important is mental health. And I feel in we are a country which is badly afflicted by issues of mental health, and it is there in the 12th plan. And I would like people who are sitting before me, people from the industry, people from the private sector, specialists, doctors, people who have, like my friend Jyotsna Govil, who has devoted her whole life to, from the civil society to cancer. These are the people who should start thinking very seriously about mental health. I must do a little aside here and say that after watching the first episode of Aamir Khan's Satyamev Jayate yesterday, we realize how far we are from actually providing that kind of care, and mental health, a salutary way of tackling the mental health issues that arise from violence against women, rape and gang rape. I just add it on because I feel that this is the right forum to bring this up. And I want to add to it the care of the elderly. I think we are all, certainly I am in that category. Many of us sitting here or few of us in any event are there or going to step into that, that part of life. Of course, life will definitely, we can think about how we prevent, we can think about all the issues surrounding it, but life has to come to an end. But as we step into that age, that care for the elderly, and we are also a growing elderly population, nowhere near what is happening in the rest of the world, so I want to put that in also. And so what we have tried to do in the Planning Commission, we have always been strapped for not being able to give enough resources in this health sector. We promised 3% or 3.5% of GDP, and my friend and colleague Anshu Prakash will bear out that we were not able to fulfill that, and Dr. Srinath Reddy knows that very well. But we tried to converge, we tried to bring all the sectors together. We tried to create a multi-stakeholder platform. So we were able to bring, for example, let me give you this example, which has also already been given by my colleagues. How do you start prevention from the very beginning? And that is when you start not only at the nursery school in the elite cities and metro cities of this country, but at the Anganwadi level. There is a way to tell that Anganwadi child, who is again from a village, a tribal village in the Simlipal forest area of the Mayurbhanj district of Orissa. That tribal Santhal child has to be told about how to prevent these diseases, which are, as my colleagues have said, that are increasingly afflicting younger and younger age group. So I think that the Planning Commission has, by converging and by bringing multi-stakeholders groups around the table and bringing the 12th plan and asking everyone to be able to bring their expertise, bring their knowledge to that platform, we have been able to create at least a leher. I would say that we may not have been able to, may not have been able to do what we set out to do, but we have managed to create a beginning. So I think I'll just stop here, and I'll simply add one point which doesn't go well with sometimes with a group where there are a lot of allopaths, but I think I'll say it anyway. I think we have a very rich system of Indian systems of medicine, and for 10 years being in my position as a member health of the Planning Commission, I've always tried to bring that into the mainstream. And when I see the whole world, and I always go once a year for spending 2 weeks, no matter how busy I am and how this fast-track life, how it devours me, but those 2 weeks are devoted to going into an ashram and taking a simple, taking time off and taking care of myself in the context of the Indian systems of medicine. So I have always I've always pushed the fact that when the whole world is beginning to look at us and look at our systems of medicine, why are we not able to bring them and converge them and integrate them into the mainstream? So I think I'll just stop here.
Excellent. No, excellent remarks. It's great that you brought up the elderly, the mental health, Ayurveda, and our own proud system of healthcare in India. So thank you very much. I'd love to get your thoughts. How does NCD become a priority among all the state governments? I mean, there is a very different level of receptivity and priority. So what are the learnings here? What could be done so that across the board this is a number one priority or a top priority?
I think that question, Karan, is the question. Because we can write anything in the plan. At that meeting of the National Development Council, it's a meeting that lasts for about 12, 13 hours. So everyone just, wants to get it over with. Every chief minister speaks his or her piece. But the point is, how do you really make them commit to it? And I think you make them commit to it by the people who are here in this room, who belong to different states, who can put the pressure or within their own states, because after all, they have signed on to a line. So that is one way in which the commitment, because whichever government comes and whichever government goes, the plan is there for till 2017. So I think that is one means. And the second thing is that we have to bring, consciously look at the work that is going on already in every single state, where civil society groups, organizations, NGOs are doing something which is absolutely remarkable, but in a very small area. So use that as a kind of an entry point. So I think these two factors.
One more question, if I may. It's a broad question, but would love your thoughts on what should be the role of the government here. We've talked about multi-stakeholders, we've talked about innovation, we've talked about the provision of care in areas that you've visited. What's your vision of the role of the government when it comes to NCDs?
Well, government, I don't know. I mean, I don't know, Dr. Reddy would say that government paisa nahi deti. The government doesn't allocate enough, 3.5% or 3% of the GDP, and I think you were very upset with us because we cut you so, the health budget was cut so much, but within the overall restraint, I think government has, when government says that this is going to be the health plan, okay, now I'm going to be very upfront with you because you've asked, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't be saying it, but anyway, when government says this is going to be the health plan, then other sectors have to give in. I mean, you have to take from other sectors and you have to, because overall, it's not going to increase. I know that in the next session you have a Deputy Chairman of the Planning Commission, so that's your inaugural session, I believe, Dr. Reddy, and he'll be able to also answer this. But I always feel either don't say this is a health plan, or if you say this is a health plan, then that's where your priority should be. I think that is one way that government can. And the other way is this way, that when you, to say, we don't have the resources, so we'll converge, we'll do multi-sectoral, all of that. But how are you going to do your basic work? And maybe that's where Anshu comes in. How are you going to do your basic work when you really find that you've got such a crunch of resources?
Thank you for being very, very upfront. Thank you very much. Mr. Prakash, can we give you the mic and have you share your thoughts?
Thank you, Karan. You have given me some questions which are very structured. I'll kind of follow them, but not entirely. Sure. Because the first question is, what is the importance of NCDs among national health priorities? For such congregation of eminent people, enlightened people, I mean, we know about this already, and if anybody had any doubt, then Dr. Srinath Reddy's very erudite presentation would have removed those doubts. I think I am here because I represent the government, the health ministry, and the natural question most of you would want me to answer is that what is government doing? What is its vision? What should it do? Is it doing enough? Well, I'll attempt to answer these questions, keeping in mind the parameters which you have laid down. But one quick point, we are talking of non-communicable diseases, very important. And there are, of course, communicable diseases. As we go along, as we progress, we will be in greater control of communicable diseases, and the percentage of mortality due to NCDs will certainly increase. Now, India has about 53% of all deaths due to NCDs. I think in the next 10 years, this will increase, not only because NCDs are increasing, but also because we are able to control the communicable diseases. 2, communicable diseases and deaths are breaking news. They capture a lot of newspaper space. I look after communicable diseases too, so I can tell you that during the session in Parliament, and when the dengue is in swing, then the only thing we can think of is deaths due to dengue and how to control it. And a few deaths get so much disproportionate space in newspapers, ignoring a major chunk of deaths which can be due to NCDs. But this is what the society we live in, and we have to work towards getting NCDs into focus vis-a-vis other diseases. Third, you raised a very relevant question about state governments. As per the constitutional framework, health is a state subject. Planning Commission can allocate resources. We can have a wonderful group chaired by Dr. Reddy, which talks of strategy of NCD. The strategies are incorporated in the plan. The Government of India has schemes, but ultimately the cutting edge lies with the state. So it's important that each of the 35 and now 36 states and UTs must be on the same plane. We must all think the same, act the same. In terms of what government is doing, I think for NCDs, we are on track. A lot has been done. There is a national program on diabetes, on cardiovascular diseases, on cancer, on stroke, on mental health, on geriatric health, and a number of other NCDs. Allocations have been substantial as compared to the earlier plans. But is it sufficient? No. We need to do much, much more. I think the government's role is to have the vision, to provide the strategy, and to weave the story together, to get all stakeholders to work together so that there is synergy. Government alone cannot achieve this or overcome this huge challenge. We have to work together with the private sector. We have to work together with the civil society and NGOs. We have to work with the media. And media holds the key for prevention. Because the power of media, and I include in this all media, be it print, electronic, social media, whatever be the definition, is able to reach the mind of the youth. I think media should be a very, very active partner in any fight against NCD. Because if there are two things which we require, the first is prevention, and that can only happen if all of us, especially children, are able to realize the danger of NCDs, because it is distant. You tell a child today of 18, stop smoking, you'll get cancer, he'll laugh it away. Because he knows he's healthy, tell me that, uncle, I had my chest x-ray done, it's clear. Tell a young fellow, don't get up at 11 in the morning on a weekend, why don't you go early in the morning and jog? I don't think he'll take us seriously. Because the onset of NCD is so distant, it will happen somewhere. They just don't care. So we need to change the mindset. And the second intervention is accessible and affordable healthcare. Accessible includes everything. Health system strengthening, health facilities in rural areas, capacities of health workers, be it doctors, be it nurses, be it paramedics, and affordable healthcare. Because we may have options, but some of these options may be totally unaffordable. Now, there is a market for all kinds of healthcare. There's a market for the private sector who can charge from those who can afford to pay, but there are many who cannot afford to pay, so government has to step in. I'd like to share with you that for cancer, we have launched a major scheme in which we are going to set up 20 state cancer institutes in different parts of the country. Each one is being supported by 120 crores as one-time assistance, and 50 tertiary care cancer centers, again in different parts of the country, and each one will get a support one time of 45 crores. This is a huge jump. What we had earlier in the 11th plan was only 6 crores. This has become 120 crores. Every state in the country, major state, will have a state cancer institute, which will coordinate all the cancer activities in the state. I think the next 5 years, the entire canvas of the country for cancer will change. Similarly, for CVDs, a major investment is being done. Funds have been given to the states, and things should emerge. COPD did not get as much attention, though we have legislated for CNG. We are also now trying to promote non-solid fuels to reduce the indoor air pollution, but we are working on that too. For diabetes, A lot has been said, a lot needs to be done. I'll stop here so that you can ask questions and maybe others can.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your thoughts there, Mr. Prakash. There's been multiple people that have come up to me and said, please ask Mr. Prakash this question. So there's a lot of interest in you being here, so thank you. The reality on the ground of many of these programs is quite different than what has been the stated intent. So take the case of the NPCDCS. Terrific program. There was a lot of excitement and laudable goals. But the reality in terms of screening, in terms of follow-through, and I think Dr. Lal is here, we'll also follow up, saying the follow-through has not been as we expected. The screening has fallen quite short. So what are we doing about that to get more traction in such an important program? And then what role can industry really play? Because there are many industry participants here that are really keen on partnering with the government to make this a reality. So would love your thoughts.
Thank you, Karan. A very good question. NPCDCS was started sometime in 2010 in 100 districts. It's now been expanded to 300 districts. NPCDCS is an acronym for National Program for Prevention and Control of Cancer, Diabetes, Cardiovascular Diseases, and Stroke. You'll be happy to know that in the last 2 years, we have screened, we means the state governments, more than 55 million people in the age group of 30 plus and all pregnant women for diabetes and for hypertension. This is the plus point. The weak point is that the linkage of results of this screening with treatment or counseling, that did not get enough attention. Now we are working on it. We have already given 75 crores to different states for strengthening this part. We are linking screening with medical colleges in different parts of the country. We've also encouraged private medical colleges to come forward and adopt a district so that all such patients screened in that district can seek treatment in their private medical college. But I don't think government can be in denial or should be in denial. We need to do much more. We need to do much more, and certainly with the help of all of us here, we will.
So thank you very much. I'm sure we'll have questions more on this particular topic. Can I give the last word to Dr. Srinath Reddy? Any reflections on what has been said and any questions for the panelists, Dr. Reddy?
Well, I think it's very important for us to recognize that we need to move on all fronts. And certainly mental health is a very critical element that needs to be added as well. Even globally now, they're talking about CIC rather than NCDs, CCI, chronic conditions and injuries, bringing in mental health along with NCDs, bringing in disabilities, and bringing in injuries as well. So we need to really have a broadband approach. But as far as the approach in the healthcare system is concerned, I think one of the key elements in the program that Mr. Prakash has talked about is this large-scale screening. I would suggest that a single sweep screen will not yield the required results because it has to be made sustainable, cost-effective, built into the health system, and therefore it has to be integrated into the primary health care on a regular basis so that every opportunity for any healthcare contact with any healthcare provider automatically reduces the missed opportunities for detecting diabetes, blood pressure, tobacco consumption, and so on. Tamil Nadu had a good model, which actually we helped design in the early 2001 to 2002. With World Bank funded assistance, they implemented it. And they've shown very good success in pickup and treatment of high blood pressure. And that's been very cost effective too, cervical cancer detection as well. So I think institutionalizing it into a well-functioning health system is going to be critically important. I think the lesson that we have learned from multiple health programs is no national program, however nobly intended or well-designed, can be force-fitted into a weak health system. So you need strong primary health care, you need a health workforce which is there, and then we do it. But as I said about technologies, we do require technologies, there's no doubt about it. We have had experience of working with schools, we have had experience of working with work sites, and very cost-effective interventions are evidence-based now, widely published, declared by WHO as best practices. They can be shared and scaled up. Right now we are working on mHealth and also with community health workers in Andhra Pradesh and what is left of Andhra Pradesh, and with Haryana, Himachal Pradesh and so on. So we do have a fair amount of Indian data that can actually be utilized, but I think all states need to work on it. The last point I'd like to make is, you said, how does one bring states into action? Of course, we must recognize there's a diversity of states in India. There are states still grappling hugely with infectious diseases and maternal and child health issues, and they will naturally prioritize some of those. That doesn't mean that NCDs are not to be ignored. But one of the critical elements we need to do is to get district level data. Once you get district level data, you can challenge the district level authorities as well as parliament members and MLAs from that district, saying this is what's happening in your district, these are the health indicators, how do you respond to this? So without that, you're going to see a certain degree of complacency in the political class in relation to some of these problems.
Great. Thank you very much. We're running short of time. We'll take a couple of quick questions from the audience. Let's see which hands go up here. You want to get the mic? Professor Bala, in the meantime, maybe you can.
I'm Dr. Bhaktavatslam from a small city down the south called Coimbatore. And the greatest disease, in my opinion, non-communicable disease, is accidents in India. Every year we lose 1,20,000. 1,20,000 people are killed in the roads of India. Indians kill Indians in the roads of India. There's a world war which is going on. The people between the age of 20 and 60 get killed. I mean, we always say driving in America is right side. Driving in England is left side. Driving in India is suicide. And what are we going to do for this unfortunate death?
Can we get the mic here?
I'm Dr. Ganguly. In the prevention, I will like to pose a question. Actually, it should start from mother's womb and the managing of the nutrition when the child is born, because all these NCDs actually start from there. And it is eminently preventable. There are now major interventions which have been tested and which could be used. My second point is this, that we should not dissect communicable, non-communicable diseases differently. They are very well connected. Lot of non-communicable disease originate from communicable disease. So we need to marry them together to have a comprehensive plan.
Is there a last question here? I think a lot of good comments, but we want one good. Let me give you again. And hopefully you have a question for us, for the panel.
I'm just going to make a comment. I'm Dr. K.K. Agarwal. My comment goes back to our Indian mythology. In our Ramayana, except for Raja Dashrath, nobody had cardiovascular disease. In the terms of Lord Ganesha, he had pot belly obesity, but never had diabetes. If I go back to the literature, in our mythology, it was mentioned that there is a disease known as Anna Dosh in Ayurveda. Anna Dosh means if you take carbohydrate every day, you're going to end up with pot belly obesity and diabetes and hypertension and this. Probably that was the reason in our ancient time, people used to fast 80 days in a year, not taking carbohydrates. Once in a week, one extra fast in a month, and then 2 Navaratras with 9 days each of not taking carbohydrate. Can this be the reason in our country? Can we do a study? We did a study of small sector where we took 100 ladies who were doing fast, 100 ladies who were not doing fast. The insulin levels were different. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that comment. So I think we will end the panel discussion here. I just wanted to thank the panelists for a terrific, for all their great thoughts. It's quite clear we have a burning platform of NCDs. Many of the themes that came up here is really about prevention, screening, and about treatment. The themes other came up was about education, multi-stakeholder activity and collaboration, innovation, market creation, accessibility and affordability, Mr. Prakash said. And it was great, Dr. Hamid, for you to bring up elderly, mental health, and the other underprivileged people in our world, in India, that need to be addressed. So again, a big round of applause to our terrific panelists.
Thank you very much, Mr. Singh, and of course to our panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, we were supposed to take a break, but we're not going to, since we are really running short of time. Those of you who are really desperate for a cup of tea,